Well, would you look at what we have here? 2005 Thunderbird, 50th anniversary edition. It was brought here last summer from Texas, I believe. Car's got 42,000 miles on it. Battery's going dead. So I've got it set up here. I put a new battery in it because it was compromised. And I've got it set up here to read current draw. And right now we're reading over 3 amps. So looking in the cabin of the vehicle, and that Garmin map system was plugged in and on, and it was plugged into a USB cigarette lighter adapter, and I've since pulled that out, but we still got 3 amps. Mind you, it's only been about 10 minutes since I started recording. 3 amps. Normally I'd put my disconnect switch on the ground side, but it's underneath here, so it was hard to get to, so I opted to put it on the positive side and just be careful not to touch anything. So we're going to let this sit for a few minutes and see if it drops. 3 amps will definitely kill the battery pretty darn fast. So I noticed that this has a trunk button here. It's dropped down to 1.39 amps, but if I push this trunk button down, it went up, so that woke up the BCM. It's going to have to block this somehow. It's got this button on here. Dropped down to 70.71, which is 700 milliamps. So I didn't notice a trunk light here on or something, but that could be keeping the BCM. So I'm going to hold this button for a few minutes. So I pulled the wire out through the trunk and I closed the trunk, and it's been shut for about 5 minutes, and it's 706 milliamps. So we're going to wait a half an hour and see if it goes to sleep. So it's been about 20 minutes, I'm sure, as I went and put a parts order in. It's dropped down to 695 milliamps, which is still way too high. Typically max of 50 milliamps, and usually around 20 to 30 is typical. So I'm going to open the trunk, turn the switch on, and bring it in the shop where it's a little bit more convenient now, because it's starting to get cool and the mosquitoes are coming out. I figured this was going to be pretty simple, because when I got this vehicle the other day, I happened to walk by it the next morning and I saw this Garmin GPS, which was plugged in, and it was laying down on the passenger side of the floor, and it was on. And it was plugged into this USB charger. So obviously that's not it. We'll have to see how much that charger actually draws even on standby. I don't imagine it's much though. Definitely not 600 milliamps, and it wasn't plugged in a few minutes ago. So I got the windows rolled down and I shut it off. I don't think this has got proximity sensors, so I should be okay to leave the key in the cab here. And we're going to open the trunk. So I put a little piece of plastic to hold that pin switch down, and after driving it in, it's at 2.33 amps. I wonder if I should latch this. I don't know if there's a micro switch on there. I'm going to latch it. So I latched the trunk in case there's some kind of a sensor in there. I don't think there's anything in the trunk lid. I don't see any wires running into it, so there can't be. So we're going to let this sit. It is now, well, according to that, 5:43 p.m. I got to plug in the battery charger to this thing. So it's now 5:45 on this time clock here, and we're down to 690 milliamps, which is where we were before. So I'm going to let it sit. I'm going to go for supper and come back in a half an hour, 45 minutes, and see what's happened. I got a battery charger plugged into this thing, so it's on AC power. It can stay here for 48 hours if I want. So coming into the shop this morning, the Parasitic draw is down to 31 milliamps. You can actually see the flashing of the security LED. I should have recorded on a longer time base so I could have been back. But 31 milliamps is okay. Oh shoot, I didn't mean to do that. I wanted to go back. So, just for the hell of it, I'm going to plug in that Garmin GPS and see how much it draws. So I plugged in the USB charger, and it went to 34 to 36 milliamps. So as I said, I found that thing hanging off the right side of the console, and it was actually on. And now that it's plugged back in, just for comparison, the draw is up to 480 to 500 milliamps, which would definitely kill the battery in a couple of days, 3 days. 500 milliamps is like a couple parking lights on. So I'm going to check the residual voltage from this battery, see what the battery is, because I put a fresh battery in it yesterday. So this battery measures 12.45 volts. Should be about 12.5 and a half or 12.6, but it wasn't completely charged, and it's a new battery, so I'm sure there's nothing wrong with the car. So I used the remote to unlock the trunk lid latch, and it obviously woke up the BCM. It's sitting at 760 milliamps, 0.76 amps. I'm going to let this record. The screens are 1 minute, so I'll see how long it takes for the BCM to go back asleep. And there could be a micro switch in this latch that might keep it awake. There's a switch here, and I've got it depressed. So the draw went from 700 milliamps down to 40 milliamps. Let's pause this and then replay it. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 23, 24, 25, 26, 28, 29. 29 minutes. Because each one of these screens is 1 minute. Yeah, 1 minute. So it was roughly 29, 30 minutes it took. And I heard a relay click in the back here, and the draw went away. Now if I take this trunk switch out, and if you open the trunk and release that switch, it turns on the trunk light back here, which draws 1.4 amps. It also wakes the BCM back up to another 700 milliamps, so that light's drawing about 700 milliamps. And if you're charging the battery, you'd likely have the trunk open, so that you're working against any trickle charger just by having that interior light on. And there's no way to easily hold this switch down. Should be some override on it. Yesterday I was trying to figure out how to get into the trunk, and there's actually a mechanical trunk release right there. You have to put the key in there to release the trunk, because there's nothing on the trunk lid, and there's no boosting studs under the hood that you can connect power to. So it took me a few minutes to figure that out. So here's my thought process. This problem would be averted if this cigarette lighter or accessory jack wasn't live all the time, if it came on and off with the key. So that comes from fuse 32, F232 in the central junction box, which is behind the right A pillar. And it goes through connector 215. I'm going to try and locate this at C270B and switch it. In other words, put it on a relay so that it's only live with the key on. That way he can leave his GPS plugged in and it'll shut off with the ignition switch. So I got to find pin 13, 11, 12, so that's this one. and it's a orange yellow wire. So we're going to find that wire coming out of C270, and we're going to run it to here, and then out of pin 30 back to the source. So we're going to cut that wire and run it through the relay. Then we're going to find a key switched power to ignition power and ground the relay. That should be a key voltage supplied and start and run, pin 7. So this was a corner one. This one here would work. All times, fused, feed, switched power, voltage supplied at all times, overload protected. Well, so we're going to come to this circuit here. Well, let's see how it is to access that connector 220. So remove the sill plate by popping it off. Remove the A-pillar plastic trim by sliding it back towards the seat, sliding it this way. And this is C270, and I'm pretty sure it's this orange yellow wire right here. So it's fairly accessible, but that green wire in pin 7 is not there. Oh yeah, there it is. There it is. Right there. So that should be key switch power. So we're going to confirm that that's key switch power, and that's the one coming from fuse 32 down here. That 20 amp fuse. So we're going to cut this orange wire, run it through the relay, pin 30 and 87, and we're going to control the relay by supplying power from this circuit, just T into this circuit, and ground, that'll be pin 85, and ground pin 86 to the firewall, or the frame here, or the body. There's a nice ground there, but I don't want to disturb that one. So there's the relay installed, the connector put back in, fuse back in. So now when I turn the key on, you'll see the cigarette lighter powers up. So now he can leave the GPS plugged in, or if he forgets, it's going to shut off with the key. Yeah, we'll put this trim back together again, and should be good to go. So we're going to do a network code clear on this Thunderbird because I've had a bunch of connections disconnected. It's got about 75,000 kilometers on it, or 80,000 kilometers, I believe. Should auto ID. No, it just took a while. Clear all codes read by code scan. I got to do a key on engine not running. Ford doesn't like you to clear all codes with the engine running. You can scan it with the engine running, I believe, but they even recommend to. Okay, so that's it for this one. That modification to the cigarette lighter or accessory plug will prevent him from inadvertently leaving something plugged in and killing the battery. Thanks for watching.